shoes are produced, they've changed things because people like you and me said, you know what, not going to buy Nikes as long as I know they're doing stuff that I think offends God's sense of justice, that's harming other people, that's harming this glorious creation. And much more locally, the reason we have these shoes sitting here, since Bob and I moved to the Valley 10 years ago, we started buying our shoes at Brown Shoe Fit downtown. And I will be absolutely honest and tell you it had absolutely nothing to do with anything we knew about, worker issues or sustainability or the environment or any of this stuff. We went to Brown's because it's one of the few places you can actually buy women's high heels, which I needed, and you can buy professional looking shoes, and they make really good shoes, and they're shoes that don't hurt your feet, and I have plantar fasciitis, so that's kind of an issue. We like Brown shoes. We like them a lot. And their shoes are more expensive, and Bob and I are lucky enough that we can afford to make a choice about would I rather pay $90 for shoes that'll last 5 years or pay $30 for shoes that will last 1 year. We get to make that choice, but a lot of you can too. And you've got to figure out that whole issue for yourself, what makes more sense. And what I was really tickled about this week is as I was looking at shoe companies, what struck me as I was reading specifically about production companies like Nike and Pushy and Simple and Clark's and Nayot and Nikes and Timberland and some other companies, it struck me that I knew there were brands that Brown's carries because those are brands that Bob and I often buy from them. So I went down and talked to Greg Palmer, who owns Brown's, and I said naively, are you aware that most of the shoes that you sell come from environmentally friendly and worker justice oriented companies? And Greg goes, yeah. And we had a long conversation about that and why that's really important to him and why he does it. And so knowing that, I'm even more motivated to go back and buy shoes from Brown's. And I'm not suggesting you need to buy shoes at Brown's or you need to buy shoes any particular place. What I'm suggesting is that all of us as consumers need to be conscious about the choices we make. We need to ask ourselves questions like, do I really need another pair of shoes? Do I really need a brand new sweater even though I really like that one that I just saw? And another question is, if I do need or want this item of clothing, does it have to be new? And I'm going to come back to that next week and talk about the possibility of secondhand and recycling that way and why that can be really helpful and important. And the third thing we need to do is figure out who we're going to buy from and why we're going to buy from this place rather than that place if we have the luxury of making those choices. As people of faith, you heard a whole raft of places where God makes it real clear, specifically in terms of the sign, what God would have us do. God says, I want you to be responsible for the fish in the sea and the birds in the air and every living thing that moves on this earth. And God says, practice righteousness and loosen the bonds of injustice. And God says, don't withhold fair wages from poor and needy workers. And Jesus says, if you live a God-centered life, don't fuss about fashion. Our concern for being stylish should not trump our concern for caring for this earth and for our sisters and brothers. Jesus ends that passage that you heard by saying, steep your life in God reality and God initiative and God provisions, and don't worry about missing out. We don't have to worry about missing out. And we're called to make sure our sisters and brothers don't have to miss out either. And that's good news for them, and that's good news for us. Thanks be.